Welcome to It's All Recruiting, the show that looks at everything through the lens of recruiting. I'm your host, Jim Stroud. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is Jim Stroud, the host with the most, coming to you live, or at least live now, this recording, with the It's All Recruiting podcast. I am privileged to be sitting here at the 10th anniversary of SourceCon. Yay! SourceCon, you know them, you love them. I certainly love them and know them. I've been part of SourceCon since its inception back in 2007. So amazed to see how far it has grown over the years. It's meant a lot to me throughout the years. I've learned so much. I've met a lot of interesting people. And one of those interesting people is with me now. Speaking, of course, of Andrew Gadomski, who's the managing director of Aspen Advisors. Yay!
Yay! or Advisors. You keep on messing up the name of my company.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
All right, but it's Aspen. You can't go wrong with Aspen.
That's right.
And we were hanging out at the bar, like so many great things that happen here at SourceCon happens around the bar.
Because it's not even noon.
That's right. It's not even noon. And we're at the bar. And so we were talking about all things sourcing and talking about data. And he said, you know what, let's go ahead and record this conversation because I think this would be a great podcast for people to listen to later. So here we are. This is what we're doing. Very informal. But yeah. So I think the one thing we were talking about earlier in our bar topic was about data. I know you're the data guru and all that. And we were talking about the data breach of Equifax and how if people can hack Equifax, the credit reporting bureau, then how much more should companies be aware or focus on security? Because there's a lot of information inside of HR systems that a lot of hackers would love to get into and start stealing identities.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of our business is, we take in the data that's from the HRIS, the ATS, the CRM, of a business. Most of the businesses that we work with are large-scale employers that are global, and they tend to be regulated. So they're maybe a government agency, they're a big pharmaceutical, they're a financial services company, and so they'll trust us with their data after we go through all their security protocols. And so, you might work with a big financial house, and they've got not only the personal data on their customers, they've got the financials of their customers. So we tend to work with companies who, after we go through an arduous security process, they allow us to receive their data and analyze it. And what's happening is the data that goes into HR systems are starting to really kind of merge with social media. And so when we start populating things in our CRMs and our ATSs, we're taking on a little bit more data than we used to. We know more things about candidates, and we're storing that data. Maybe we're not meaning to do it, but we do. That's a lot more personal. And so the concept of, I'm going to hack this company's data set around its employees or its candidates so I can use that for fraudulent purposes is real. I know a lot more. Now we can merge we have Facebook threads that we're downloading information. We might know things about not only people's, they apply to a job. We might know their gender, we know their race, we know their location, we know their home address, we know their personal email address. You start cross-referencing that with Facebook. Start knowing about their families. It's amazing the conversations that go into a CRM, and I have this in common with this person. I know the name of their kid, and they do something, and we're automating all these things more and more. So it's a real thing, trying to figure out where do we store this data, how do we store it, and how do we keep it safe.
When you say that, it makes me wonder about all the trends that are going on in the HR space, especially around job boards. You got Google Jobs, you got Facebook Jobs, which is cute. I think they could do a lot more.
I think so too.
You got Microsoft buying LinkedIn. You got Amazon rumored to buy Slack for like $9 billion or some obscene amount of money. And I think it's really going to affect how job boards have to evolve in the future. Well, in the present. Yeah. Because when people go to Career Builder or any other job board, I'm not picking on Career Builder, but any job board, They go there, they fill out a form, they look or they search for a job, and then they go about their merry way. But people live on Google. People live with Microsoft, and all that extra data can be manipulated and leveraged and used to perfect the perfect job description. The perfect job description to a candidate. But I think people don't really realize or think about what they're giving up in privacy in terms of that.
Well, and because we're so used to swiping right. Right. So, how much, we say, well, I want to go ahead and allow this employer to see things on Facebook by swiping right, or I want to go ahead and do my LinkedIn profile or give access to LinkedIn, as I throw up air quotes, everybody. But realize that sometimes what we're granting access to can be a little bit wider than the user probably thinks, right? And then that data is in a position to be compromised if it's not well secured. Now, let's not all panic. There's no panic here, right? But I think that it's a real question for a company is, what do we do with the information that we get on people? And realize that sometimes we have multiple. What we're not talking about is that you have a company like Microsoft that also has CRM tools and operation tools that are not related to recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
Like their dynamic CRM,
Yep.
which will control all your customers.
Yep.
Or all your, and all their loyalty programs. Okay? Well, merge that with LinkedIn. Because you can. Now I have the employment data and the sales data for somebody who's a customer.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about this in London not long ago, about how if I'm on an airline, it's very possible that the flight attendants know why I'm flying. They know my loyalty number. Mm-hmm. They know how many miles I've flown. They know why I'm flying because I've opted in to merge my Facebook and everything else. They would know whether or not I've applied for a job. Can you imagine that?
Huh.
That this person... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jim, I'm Jason, AK's friend as well.
How
are you?
Nice to meet you, Jason. Yeah.
So imagine if the flight attendant actually got a list of, there are people who are flying to meet our executives for an interview, and then they get a little special treatment.
Wow.
That data lives and breathes today. And it's not because a company like American or United is doing anything special. It's because companies like Amazon and Microsoft are merging their systems where, we're going to be able to, I think we're going to literally be able to apply to jobs using our Amazon accounts.
Wow. It seems like you would need, from the standpoint of security, some sort of double authentication or multi-factor authentication.
Right.
So that if, let's say, a recruiter is looking at somebody's resume in some ATS, and they say, okay, I'm going to move this applicant from consideration over to hiring manager interview or something. And then the candidate gets a note saying that somebody just moved your data in their system. Are you cool with that? I mean, do you see something like that happening?
I totally see that. So let's use a real-time example. Let's say you applied to a job using your Amazon account or your Facebook account. Even better. So let's just say you use your Facebook profile. This is a real example, and this can really happen today. I'm not making it up. I applied to a job using my Facebook profile. Or I go and I join a talent community using my Facebook profile. Even better. And so then I have a conversation with a recruiter a few weeks later. And they say, hey, we found you in our talent pipeline, and you're a pretty strong coder, and we got something going on here. Why don't you apply for this job? Is that cool? Yeah, I'd be interested. Okay, great. I'll move you over from one system to another. I'll take you out of the talent pipeline, and I'll apply for you. This is the recruiter saying this. Hang up the phone. Now the recruiter goes ahead and moves, and let's just say someone's using one of these blended talent solutions where the CRM and the ATS exist together, or that there's a push mechanism. They say, move Jim from talent pipeline to an applicant as for this Java developer in San Diego. Now, that person applied with Facebook. Facebook already has multi-factor authentication built into its mobile app. It's called Code Generator. So you would get a little message from Facebook that says, hey, somebody, this person, has moved your Facebook profile from the talent pipeline to this job. Can you authenticate, yes or no?
Wow.
That's today.
Wow.
Now, I don't think, the guys at Facebook are probably listening and they're like, whoa, that's really cool. But Code Generator is built into the security profile already within every Facebook mobile app.
Wow.
And so that's just, so LinkedIn doesn't have, so LinkedIn kind of has multi-factor authentication. Like when you change your password, it says somebody changed your password, it sends you an email, but it's not necessarily in-app. But that's just coming. So as soon as, so to your point, Jim, I think that we've got the ability to communicate with candidates differently and say, someone's moving your data around, is that okay? And if you say no, guess what? No. I like this concept. I think it's really cool to make it where, I got you. Don't worry about the application. We got you. Let me move you over. Great. Little thing pops up. Oh, wow, they did it. Yeah. Right? Or, no, I changed my mind. Fine. I'd rather, as an ex-recruiter, I'd rather have someone get a double check and they say, I'm not going to authenticate this. And you know what? I don't need to call them back. I don't need to chase them down. They're just not into it. I did a bad job selling them, whatever it was. But move on to the next candidate. That stuff's real.
I can see the good and
the bad.
And the bad on that. The good is, if I'm a candidate, I know that I'm not in a black hole forgotten about, because I see there's actual activity around my resume, around my application. So that's good. From a recruiter standpoint, it's good that I know if someone's not interested, saves me time.
Right.
Or it tells me, okay, maybe I didn't do a good enough sales job. Maybe I need to try to reach out and try to sell them a bit more, so I won't be surprised weeks later when I get the offer letter stage or something.
Right.
So that's kind of good too. Some things that I might not like about it from a company perspective is that 200 people apply for the job, and they say, okay, you didn't even look at my resume. I know you didn't look at my resume because I didn't get any authentication or notification from Facebook saying that you looked at me.
Well, that's true. So
now
I'm talking about something slightly different.
Okay.
So I'm talking about a data privacy thing that says I'm giving this recruiter the permission to move me from a CRM into the ATS and apply for me. Right? So right now we have to go ahead and send to somebody.
So the person you're talking about hasn't applied for the job per se.
That's
There's somebody that you found from sourcing, and you put them into your CRM.
Right.
Okay.
Imagine if you just went ahead and you called up somebody, you tracked them down off of Facebook.
Yeah.
And then said, hey man, I really think you're great for this job. How about I apply for you? He says, how did you do that? Just look, I'll go ahead, fill out I'm just going to move your Facebook profile over for you. Facebook's going to go ahead and send you a little authentication code. Just say yes.
Now, I love that convenience.
I mean, it's just fabulous, right?
Yeah.
Now, the thing is that person might have been in your CRM. We could have been pipelining them, gathering. You got all kinds of people here at SourceCon who could be populating the CRM with all kinds of goodies on that person, and all that stuff just moves over to the ATS, right? And says, boom, apply that person.
Let me ask you this though, because I like it from a recruiter standpoint. Now, arguing from the candidate standpoint. And I say, okay, I like that that's conveniently you're going to move me over from one system to the other, and I'm cool with that. But then I think about it. Man, I had beers with my pal last night, and they posted some really wild pictures of me on Facebook.
No, all I'm talking about is, hey.
But one thing with a candidate, with a candidate thinking like, oh my goodness, what else are they going to know about me on Facebook?
I think what it would be is it would be a message that like Code Generator is going to say, hey, it looks like someone went ahead and said you might be interested in this job. They moved you over. Did you want to finish the application? Right? And then all that's in there is like your profile, right? Not like your Facebook profile. It's like it says Jim Stroud, Randstad SourceRight, phone number, blah blah blah. Do you want to apply? But I'm just trying to think about, as these data systems merge and as we think about data privacy, do we need to get people to apply to jobs and be interested in jobs and show their interest the same way that we move consumer-based data? The same way that we transact on Amazon, or the way that we transact with Dropbox, or anything on our phones, people are used to certain methodologies of saying, yes, I'm giving you permission. And like everything else in recruiting, you got a little fan. You got a fan coming by.
Sources getting younger.
Sources are getting younger every day. but as we need to move, why aren't we thinking in recruiting about how to transact data the same way we transact as consumers? And say, yes, I'm checking in. I mean, we don't even do that now. I mean, I bet you when you came here, Jimmy, about 24 hours before you got on your flight, right? Or well, I guess you're local, so you probably drove.
No. I flew.
You flew?
Atlanta. Yeah.
Oh, from Atlanta. Okay, right. So you're not in Dallas. So when you flew, you got a little 24-hour notice saying, do you want to check in?
Yeah.
All right. Well, why aren't we doing that before people show up to an interview? Hey, 24 hours ahead of time. You want to check in for your interview? Here's what you need to know. Here's where you need to go. Why is that not automated? Are you kidding me?
That's a good point.
We're not thinking the same way we're buying. And guess what? Job is one of the biggest purchases that we make.
Sure.
It's a big transaction.
And you can easily argue that people are already primed for this kind of process because they're doing it in other arenas.
Right, we're doing it for travel. We're doing it for food. If I get one more freaking notification from Open Table here in Austin about, hey, do you want to have dinner tonight? I'm like, yeah, I do, but I already made reservations. But as soon as I made a reservation, you know what happened? The notification stopped.
Very good.
How smart is that?
Yeah. If you had to make a bet of a type of company that would do this kind of innovation, would it be probably a Silicon Valley startup company or something like that?
You know what? I think that there are Silicon Valleys, and I think what's going to end up happening is someone's going to come up with it. They'll come up with a couple of little apps, But I think that the game is somebody like LinkedIn, Google, Amazon will buy it, and then spin it out. And so I'm looking to see how does the Microsoft LinkedIn combination. How does Google? I'm waiting on something from Apple that's iOS oriented. And I'm waiting on Amazon. I am waiting on Amazon to enter the talent acquisition space.
Matter of time.
It is a matter of time. They're hiring too many people in the United States alone, let alone just their business. I mean, getting people to apply with their Prime account, it has got to be coming. It just, I mean, like, Jeff, listen up, man. Get this done. I'm like, just, because it's easier to say, yes, I'm interested. I know where I'm shopping. A company like a Whole Foods, we'll use them as the example. Well, better yet, we'll use something. Here, I'm wearing Pumas today, right?
Yeah.
How cool would it be if Puma knew that I was a Java developer, but I was also their customer? You don't think that when they buy their next set of Pumas, Amazon could say, hey, did you know that there's a Java developer job that's remote working for these guys? Only Amazon would know that.
I'd say that reminds me of an idea I had for Netflix, right? Because I wrote about it on my blog, jimstroud.com, where if I were a Java developer per se, and I want to work for Netflix, and I applied for a job, the next time I log into Netflix, where I have like the logo of me and my different family names who have Netflix accounts, a little icon popped up and said Netflix jobs. And it said, hey, just so you know, somebody at Netflix has reviewed your job and would like to talk to you. And I see that when I log into Netflix.
I love that idea.
That would be awesome.
Well, so here's the other idea I like for like a Netflix is, let's just say, and so, okay, everyone hold on, just relax. I promise I'll catch up. I have not yet watched an episode of Game of Thrones. But let's just say that I want to watch Game of Thrones. And then, so if I wanted to watch an old thing of Game of Thrones, how am I going to do that, Jim? I'm going to go to an app to do that. So what app am I going to?
HBO.
Perfect. So let's just say that I go into HBO and HBO on demand, and I want to see Game of Thrones. And it told me, do you want to meet some of the people who are also watching Game of Thrones? And that and HBO, maybe it's like, hey, did you know that here at HBO we know that you're a Java developer? Wouldn't you like to work here? Do you want to meet some of the people who also work at our business? who also watch Game of Thrones. All that is coming. Take that and apply it to Spotify, Pandora, all of that. You downloaded a book. Do you want to meet other people who work at this company who have also read that book?
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
Because we're trying to
awesome.
figure. This is where the data play is going.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out, how do I get you to be interested in us? And we talk about things like culture and branding and similarities. And you should meet other people who have the same affinity as you. What is more personal than what we spend our money on and how we spend our time?
Ooh, that's good.
And so now we're going to see the merging of these marketing apps and these recruiting apps to have the data combine. So when I go ahead and I know something about you. I know your profession. But I also know people at my business who are like you. Wouldn't you like... So I think like the concept of the first screen being the hiring manager. You look at some of the companies, you guys are one, who advocate on this concept that we have people who are ambassadors of our business.
Yep.
Imagine if the first phone screen was of somebody who you knew, somebody at the company who has something in common with you. And just be like, hey man, I heard that you're a developer like me, but we both rock on Game of Thrones. Tell me what we got going on. Did you see the last episode? Yeah. Okay, so I get it. That's cool. What's going on? You like your job? I don't know, man. I mean, you know how it is. And if that's the first conversation, all of a sudden interviews go away. We're talking about dialogues now.
Wow.
Just dialoguing about
I like that.
two people who have something in common. And one of the things that they have in common now that you've identified is, I know what it's like to take to work here, and they trust me to talk about it. And I also know that you were just interested enough to have that conversation. So I think what data is going to end up doing is that all this merged data around marketing and the way we buy stuff is going to change the initial dialogues that we're having between people. I get all the automation and we can 100 people can do a job interview online automatically and we can analyze it. I get all that. What's going to close people is the dialogue. That's all that's left. Is I like you, you like me, and yes, we can work together and we're going to have a good time.
I like that because in candidate engagement, it's going to come down to engagement. Automate what you can, but in true engagement, I don't think it will ever truly be automated.
No, I don't
not
think
really.
So. And we think about, we talk about cultures. And Jim, I mean, so how many people do you think you really work with? If you took a list of your emails and your phone calls that you did in the last 2 weeks, I'm willing to bet that 80% of your phone calls and your conversations and so on is probably with no more than, say, 12 to 15 people.
Sure.
That's your company. That's your group. And if you were to hire somebody to work for you, they're going to go into that group. And so what's that little culture? There might be the big awesome Randstad, and it's yes, all these wonderful benefits and tools, but let's really be honest. You work for a team. So now the question is can I find you a team to work for in our business?
So it's sort of like focusing on the mini culture.
That's right. That's what data is going to allow us to do. Is you can I guarantee you, anybody who wants to work for like a FedEx, right? We could find a team for you to work at FedEx. It's a big enough company. There's something somewhere in a company that size. I don't care if you're in development, you're in marketing, you're in branding, you're in supply chain. They'll find you a home. But the reason why it's a home and not just a house is because of the 3 or 4 people that you're probably going to engage with all the time. And if you like those people, you will like working there.
And you'll stay there.
And you will stay there.
Yeah, because retention is I have a book coming out about that pretty soon, about retention to new recruiting.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can do all this sourcing and finding them is one thing. The next hurdle is keeping them.
We've got a customer. They got about 12,000 hires they got to do over the next few years that are very similar.
Right.
Remote locations. And the problem is it usually takes anywhere from about 2 to 2.5 years of doing that technical skill to kind of achieve mastery in their systems. Right? So somebody comes in, they start putting them in the system, and it takes a while. But the problem is they need to have them really stay there 7-10 years to kind of make the learning investment work. And so this is all government work, and so they don't want people to roll out on them 5 years.
Sure.
Right?
It's a big cost associated with that.
Well, what ends up happening is now they got to retrain somebody again.
Yeah.
And so the question is, well, what are you hiring for? Are you really hiring for someone to work for you for 11 years? Because if that's the case, you better sell it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And now the question is how are you pitching that? How are you attracting that? Because getting, you go ask your average American who is 25 years old, who's married, no kids, and the both spouses work. You ask him to try to commit to an idea for a dozen years in the same location, yeah, good luck. Because what that's going to do is that might hinder one partner's ability to move in their own career. This isn't 1950 anymore.
Right.
We got to have those considerations. And so you look at that and you say, well, let's use data to kind of make better judgment calls and say, well, maybe what we should be doing is trying to hire people who, have a little bit more experience. They've already kind of gone through the moves. Let's find somebody, and, not to be ageist about it, but there's nothing wrong with hiring somebody who's 40 years old, who wants to be stable.
Sure.
Great.
Sure.
Oh, no, we need to get someone who's 25. No, you don't, because they're going to move on you. And it costs too much to replace them 3 times over 11 years.
Right.
But we don't think that way as much as we should. And so that's kind of some of the work I'm doing right now is we're looking at how are you going to hire people over the next dozen years? And we know that it's going to get cheaper over time. But guess what? The cheapest thing is to hire them once.
Yeah.
And we did that with manufacturing. You'd work at a Chrysler plant as a skilled tradesperson for 20 years.
Get your gold watch and on your merry way.
And you know what? You think it's a bad idea for someone who's in development to go work for Microsoft for 20 years? I don't think it's a bad idea.
No,
They could be very, very happy people.
Yeah.
Not everybody needs to climb the corporate ladder and I need to be a manager, I need to do this. Stop all that. No, they don't.
The company also companies need to initiate initiatives to keep their people engaged.
That's right.
Over that time as well, though.
That's right, because there's different programs and different projects and new products and new things that we can do. And, sometimes people end up moving to, because, hey, I just don't like the walls that I got around me anymore.
It's this company in, let me say Sri Lanka. Not Sri Lanka. I forget. Maybe Singapore, but it's called Mind Valley.
Okay.
And they do something that is really, it was so interesting. One way that they keep their people with them for so long is that if someone comes up to them with an idea, what they'll do is they'll say, okay, hey, I have this idea for a company that we could do. And so they'll pitch it to their company, to Mind Valley. Mind Valley says, I like that idea. I'll invest in that idea. And now you will be the entrepreneur for that idea under our umbrella.
Gotcha.
So one company birthing smaller companies and then letting them take the reins and build up that smaller company into something bigger, with Mind Valley still owning a significant stake in it, but financing them and getting them up and running and all that kind of stuff, I thought was just amazing. It blew my mind when I first heard about that. That was an awesome retention.
And we've got, there's no silver bullets, Jim. You know that better than I do, right?
Yeah.
Is that there's no one way to do it. And I think that companies just need to make sure that they're revisiting. Companies need to kind of figure out, are we going to refresh our brand? Are we going to refresh our culture? How often are we going to do that? We got to talk to our employees about what that is.
Yeah.
The most dangerous thing in the business and the most productive thing in the business is 4 or 5 people who are dedicated to get something to happen. Okay. You get 5 people in a room with a lot of dedication and a lot of thought, they'll get a lot of things done. Problem is it the wrong things?
Sure.
Because we've got plenty of people who get in a room and don't engage the employee base. They don't have the conversations. They just make it up.
Yeah.
It says, oh, we're going to quickly move into flexible work hours. Everyone's like, what just happened? It's like, okay, maybe I don't want that. Well, that's okay because we need to recruit all kinds of people who want to work flexible hours. I'm like, well,
I can stand up and sit.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
No, I'm good.
No. I was gonna have to go
good.
through.
Well, we're about. I'm looking at the clock on the wall anyway, so we're about out of time. But
I'm gonna go sit over here.
No, he's got a chair for you right here.
see ya. We're out here at a restaurant, and we're meeting our friends here. People are walking by and talking. So, hi, Cyndy. Give it a shout out. You're on the podcast.
Cyndy Davis in the house.
Hey. All right, we're going to grab some lunch, people. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for my guest, Andrew. If people wanted more information, they want to pick your brain a bit more about data, how can they reach out to you?
Email is always the best for me. I always answer my emails. Andrew at my Aspen Advisor. But you know what? Go hit me up on Facebook, too. I'm not so much of a LinkedIn fan. I'll check that once a week. But Facebook, that'll hit me right on my phone. So hit me up there.
What's your handle?
Very cool.
Andrew Gadomski.
Boom. There it is. Thank you all for listening to the It's All Recruiting podcast. Cyndy is showing us some very cool purple shoes, which is all the fashion rage here at SourceCon. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening. If you were not there, then I would be here talking to myself. So thank you for that. If you would, check out the links in the podcast description because they are there for you. Finally, if you love what you heard, hate what you heard, or not quite sure what you just heard, I want to know about it. Connect with me on Twitter at Jim Stroud, or LinkedIn, or Google+, or pretty much anywhere you find me online. I'm everywhere. Okay, enough of that. Until next time, one last word spoken 3 times to my people at Randstad Sourceright. Love, love, love.